The sound of Mrs. Eleanor Patterson crying on her front porch at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning made me drop the wrench I was holding and walk straight across the street without thinking. Eleanor was 78 years old, had lived in that house for 42 years, and I'd never seen her cry. Not when her husband George died 3 years ago. Not when her son moved to California, not ever. But there she was, sitting on her porch swing with a piece of paper in her shaking hands, tears streaming down her face like her whole world had just collapsed. I'm Raymond Tucker. I'm 56 years old, and I've lived across the street from Eleanor and George Patterson in our quiet Tampa, Florida neighborhood since my wife and I moved here 23 years ago. George had been my best friend. We'd fished together every Sunday morning for 2 decades. When he died of a heart attack while mowing his lawn, I'd held Eleanor's hand at the funeral and promised George I'd look after her. And right now, looking at her broken down on that porch, I felt like I was failing that promise. Eleanor, what's wrong? I sat down next to her on the swing, and she handed me the paper with trembling fingers. It was a bill from something called Cypress Gardens HOA Management Services. The amount made my vision go blurry with rage. $89,750. Eleanor, what is this? I don't know, she sobbed, her voice barely a whisper. They've been sending me violation notices for 6 months. Fines for my garden, my mailbox, my roof, everything George used to take care of. I've been paying them because I thought I had to. Raymond, I've already paid them $32,000 from George's life insurance. This says I still owe almost $90,000 more, and if I don't pay in 30 days, they're going to foreclose on my house. My hands started shaking, not from fear, from pure white-hot fury. Eleanor, how long has this been going on? Since right after George died. A man came to my door, said he was from the HOA, said there were violations George had been ignoring. He was wearing an official uniform, had a badge, showed me papers. I thought it was real, Raymond. I've been paying them every month, taking money out of my retirement account, and they keep saying I owe more. I read through the bill carefully, forcing myself to stay calm for Eleanor's sake, even though I wanted to put my fist through a wall. The violations were insane. Unauthorized memorial garden for deceased spouse, $15,000. That was the small flower bed Eleanor had planted in George's memory. Non-compliant grief counseling signage, $8,500. That was a small wooden sign that said, "In memory of George Patterson, beloved husband," that she'd put in her garden. Improper widow maintenance of property standards, $22,000. They were literally charging her for grieving her husband. I looked at the signature at the bottom. Marcus Wendell, President, Cypress Gardens HOA Management Services. Eleanor, listen to me very carefully. This isn't real. We don't have an HOA in this neighborhood. We never have. Someone is scamming you. Her eyes went wide. But he had a uniform, Raymond. He had official papers. He said George had been ignoring violations and now I was responsible. It's fake, Eleanor. All of it. And I'm going to handle this. Do you have the contact information for this Marcus Wendell? She pulled out a folder with shaking hands. Inside were 6 months of violation notices, payment receipts, and letters. All official looking, all complete fraud. The contact information listed an address in Tampa, a phone number, and business hours. Eleanor, I need you to do something for me. Don't pay them another penny. Don't answer their calls. Don't open your door if anyone from this fake HOA shows up. Can you do that? But Raymond, they said they'll take my house. They can't take your house. They have no legal authority. This is extortion, and I'm ending it today. I stood up and Eleanor grabbed my arm. Raymond, please don't do anything dangerous. I couldn't bear it if something happened to you because of me. I looked at this woman who'd been my neighbor for 23 years, who'd brought casseroles when my wife had surgery, who'd watched our kids grow up, who'd been part of our family. George had been my brother in everything but blood, and these bastards had targeted his widow the second he died. Eleanor, I'm not going to do anything dangerous. I'm going to do something necessary. I walked back to my house and made 3 phone calls. The first was to my son Marcus, who was a detective with the Tampa Police Department. The second was to my lawyer, Bill Henderson, who'd handled my construction business contracts for 15 years. The third was to the address listed on the fake HOA paperwork, a man answered. Cypress Gardens HOA Management. This is Marcus Wendell. Mr. Wendell, my name is Raymond Tucker. I'm calling about Eleanor Patterson's account. Ah, yes, Mrs. Patterson. Her account is significantly delinquent. Is she calling to arrange payment? The casual way he said it, like he wasn't destroying an elderly widow's life, made my blood boil. Actually, I'm calling to inform you that I know you're running a scam, that Mrs. Patterson has already contacted law enforcement, and that you should probably leave town before you're arrested for elder abuse and fraud. There was a pause. Sir, I don't know what you're talking about. Cypress Gardens HOA is a legitimate organization enforcing community standards. There is no Cypress Gardens HOA. I've lived in this neighborhood for 23 years. You're targeting elderly widows with fake violations and extorting money from them. And you picked the wrong widow. Another pause. Longer this time. Mr. Tucker, if Mrs. Patterson has complaints about her assessments, she can file an appeal through proper HOA channels. But I should warn you that interfering with legitimate HOA business can result in additional fines for her property. I'll see you in an hour, Marcus. At your office. And you should probably have a lawyer present. I hung up before he could respond. My son arrived at my house 30 minutes later in his unmarked police car. Detective Marcus Tucker looked like a younger version of me. Same build, same stubborn jaw, same protective instinct when it came to people we cared about. I'd named him after my father, and he'd grown up calling George and Eleanor Uncle George and Aunt Eleanor. Dad, you said this was about Aunt Eleanor? I handed him Eleanor's folder. Marcus read through it, and I watched his expression shift from professional interest to cold fury. They charged her $15,000 for a memorial garden? Dad, this is disgusting. It's elder abuse. And I want you to arrest everyone involved. I will, but I need to do this right. We need evidence of fraud, proof that this HOA doesn't exist, documentation of the extortion. He pulled out his phone. Let me make some calls. Bill Henderson arrived 20 minutes later with his briefcase and a grim expression. I showed him Eleanor's documents, and he immediately started taking notes. Raymond? This is textbook elder financial abuse. The signature on these documents, Marcus Wendell, I've actually heard that name before. There was a case 3 years ago, similar scam in Clearwater. He got probation because the victims were too scared to testify. Looks like he's back at it. Not anymore, I said. We're going to his office, all three of us, and we're ending this today. We drove to the address listed on the fake HOA paperwork. It was a small office building in a strip mall, sandwiched between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. The sign on the door said, Cypress Gardens Property Management, Professional HOA Services. Marcus checked the business registration on his phone. It's a real LLC filed 6 months ago, but that doesn't make it a legitimate HOA. It just means he's got paperwork. We walked in. The office was small, just a reception area with a desk and a back office. A woman in her 30s sat at the desk, and she looked up nervously when we entered. Can I help you? We're here to see Marcus Wendell, I said. He's expecting us. Do you have an appointment? Marcus pulled out his badge. Detective Tucker, Tampa PD. This isn't a social call. The color drained from her face. I just work the front desk. I don't know anything about— Get your boss, now! A man emerged from the back office. Mid-40s, expensive suit, slicked back hair, and a smile that died the second he saw Marcus's badge. Detective, what's this about? Marcus Wendell? Marcus asked. Yes, and you are? Detective Marcus Tucker. This is Raymond Tucker and attorney Bill Henderson. We're here about Eleanor Patterson. Wendell's smile returned, but it was strained. Mrs. Patterson's account. Is she finally ready to settle her outstanding balance? I stepped forward before Marcus could stop me. Her outstanding balance for what? For violating HOA rules that don't exist? For living in a neighborhood that doesn't have an HOA? For planting flowers in memory of her dead husband? Mr. Tucker, I presume? We spoke on the phone. Cypress Gardens HOA has legitimate authority granted by the property covenants filed with Hillsborough County. Show me those covenants, Bill interrupted. Show me the legal documentation proving Cypress Gardens HOA has authority over Mrs. Patterson's property. Wendell hesitated. Those documents are on file with the county. I don't need to prove anything to you. Bill pulled out his phone. I checked with the county recorder's office on the drive over. There are no HOA covenants filed for Eleanor Patterson's neighborhood. There never have been. So I'll ask again. Show me your legal authority. Wendell's expression shifted from confident to defensive. The HOA was recently reactivated by majority vote of property owners. The covenants are in the process of being filed. Bullshit, I said flatly. You created a fake HOA. You targeted my neighbor when she was vulnerable after her husband died. And you've extorted $32,000 from her by pretending you had legal authority. That's elder abuse, fraud, and extortion. And it ends right now. You can't prove any of that, Wendell said, but his voice wavered. Marcus pulled out a recording device. Actually, we can. My father recorded your phone conversation earlier where you admitted to charging Mrs. Patterson for HOA violations. Florida is a two-party consent state. But that doesn't matter because Dad warned you this was being investigated. You had every opportunity to stop. Instead, you threatened additional fines. I never threatened. You said interfering with HOA business would result in additional fines for her property, I reminded him. That's extortion. You're trying to scare an elderly widow into paying you money for violations that don't exist. Bill opened his briefcase and pulled out documents. Mr. Wendell, I've filed an emergency restraining order on behalf of Eleanor Patterson. You're prohibited from contacting her, sending her any further bills, or threatening her property. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. You're also under investigation for elder fraud, Marcus added. I've contacted the state attorney's office. They're very interested in your operation, especially since you have a prior conviction for similar activity. And Mr. Wendell, we're going to find every elderly person you've scammed, and you're going to refund every penny. Wendell's composure cracked completely. Look, I can explain. This is a legitimate business model. HOAs have authority to enforce standards. Fake HOAs don't have authority to do anything except send you to prison, Marcus said coldly. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to provide me with every record of every person you've contacted, every violation you've issued, every payment you've collected. Then you're going to sit in an interrogation room and explain to the state attorney exactly how your scam works. Or I can arrest you right now for elder abuse, fraud, and extortion. Your choice. Wendell looked at me, at Marcus, at Bill, and whatever fight he had left died in his eyes. I want a lawyer. Smart choice, Marcus said, pulling out his handcuffs. Marcus Wendell, you're under arrest for elder financial abuse, fraud, and extortion. You have the right to remain silent. I watched as Marcus handcuffed him and read him his rights. The receptionist started crying, swearing she didn't know it was illegal, that she just answered phones and sent out letters Wendell told her to send. Marcus assured her that if she cooperated, she probably wouldn't face charges. Over the next 3 weeks, the investigation expanded beyond anything I'd expected. Wendell hadn't just targeted Eleanor. He'd created multiple fake HOAs across Tampa and the surrounding areas, targeting elderly widows and widowers specifically. His method was always the same. Wait for an obituary. Identify properties owned by elderly surviving spouses. Create a fake HOA with official-looking documents. And start sending violation notices within months of the death. He'd stolen over $600,000 from 43 victims across 3 counties in just 18 months. The Florida Attorney General's office took over the prosecution. Wendell was charged with 43 counts of elder abuse, fraud, extortion, and organized scheme to defraud. His trial was scheduled for 6 months later, but he took a plea deal when faced with over 200 years in potential prison time. He got 28 years in Florida State Prison. No parole eligibility for 15 years. At the sentencing hearing, Eleanor stood up to give a victim impact statement. I sat right behind her for support, and I watched this sweet 78-year-old woman who'd been so broken just months ago stand tall and look her abuser in the eyes. Mr. Wendell, Eleanor said, her voice steady and strong. You came to my home 2 months after my husband died. 2 months. I was still crying myself to sleep every night. I was still finding his reading glasses in random places and breaking down. And you saw that grief, that vulnerability, and you decided it was an opportunity. You charged me $15,000 for planting flowers in memory of my George. You charged me for having a sign with his name on it. You tried to take the home we built together. The place where we raised our son. Where we celebrated 52 anniversaries. You almost succeeded. If Raymond hadn't noticed, if he hadn't fought for me, I'd be homeless right now. You're going to prison for a long time, and I hope every day you're there, you think about the widows you targeted. I hope you think about the grief you exploited, and I hope you never get the chance to hurt anyone else again. The judge ordered Wendell to pay full restitution to all 43 victims. Eleanor got her $32,000 back, plus damages. So did everyone else Wendell had targeted. Florida passed new legislation making it a specific felony to create fake HOAs to target elderly homeowners. The law included mandatory minimum sentences and required all HOA documents to be verified by the county before any enforcement actions could be taken. They called it George's Law after Eleanor's late husband, since his death had made Eleanor a target. Eleanor still lives in her house across the street from me. The memorial garden for George is bigger now, more beautiful, and there's a bench where she sits every evening. The sign with George's name is still there, perfectly legal, perfectly appropriate, and nobody will ever charge her for it again. I kept my promise to George. I looked after Eleanor, and when some predator thought he could exploit her grief, I walked across the street and ended it. Last Sunday morning, I was getting ready to go fishing alone like I'd done every Sunday for 3 years since George died. Eleanor came out on her porch and called over to me. Raymond, George wouldn't want you fishing alone. He'd want you to take someone who appreciates it, I smiled. You offering, Eleanor? I'm too old for fishing, but my grandson is visiting from California. He's 13, never been fishing in his life. George would have wanted him to learn, so I took Eleanor's grandson fishing. Taught him to bait a hook, cast a line, wait patiently for the bite, just like George had taught me decades ago. And sitting there on the boat, watching this kid's eyes light up when he caught his first fish, I felt like George was right there with us, smiling. That's what protecting family means. Not just stopping the bad guys, though, that's part of it. It's making sure the people you love are safe, that their grief isn't exploited, that their memories are honored, that life goes on the way it should. Marcus Wendell thought he could prey on widows. He thought grief made people weak and easy to exploit. He forgot that some widows have neighbors who keep their promises, who walk across the street when they see tears, who don't stop until justice is done. Eleanor's house is still standing. George's memory is honored, and somewhere in a Florida prison cell, Marcus Wendell has 28 years to think about the day he targeted the wrong widow and discovered that some promises are kept no matter what. If you loved this emotional story about a neighbor who kept his promise and brought down an elder abuse scam that targeted grieving widows, absolutely smash that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories of loyalty, justice, and the lengths good people go to protect those they love.